welcome back to the Crazy Courage podcast, where we have business stories and wonderful guests here. Today, we're joined by Jordan Hawn from Hawn Consulting. He is the proud owner of a brand new, beautiful shop and agency. And I'm going to hand it over to Jordan. He's going to tell us exactly what Hawn Consulting is all about.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me on, for doing this. This is great. So as Nick mentioned, my name's Jordan, owner of Hawn Consulting. I've been in business for about a year and a half, but have about 10 plus years experience in brand marketing and sales. And so really our mission here is to guide creative thinkers to make a positive impact in their communities. So once I start my business, I really want to work with good people that are trying to make positive change and need help with their strategic brand and marketing at a very high level. That's what we do.
Nice. Awesome. And now, Jordan, you were telling me that you have a team, including yourself, of 7 people. Nice. It's yes.
So it started off with myself, and that's why it was sort of the consulting route in my name. And then as things went, I had different contractors, different people I worked with. Hired my first full-time staff about 6 months ago, and then since then, sort of been on growth mode, which has been great. And had a combination of both full-time and part-time people, and we operate remotely, but we do have a co-working base we use downtown. So a bit of a hybrid approach in the business model, but aside from myself, designers, content marketers, copywriters, web developers, project managers, and also my dad works with me too as well, sort of the business development side. So that's been fun too as well.
That's awesome. Does it now? I'll ask you. Does your dad have a background in this sort of thing?
He's got a big insurance background.
Okay.
So he worked in the insurance industry for 30 years
Wow.
as a commercial sales executive. So the company was McDougall Insurance. They still have lots of offices in the Ottawa
Oh
area.
yeah.
And so he retired, and a couple months later, he's looking for something to do, and asked how my business was going. And he's very well respected in a lot of different communities here in the Ottawa Valley. And just getting him on board, having conversations with people, going to networking events, that kind of stuff has been great. And just spitballing ideas and bouncing things off him too has been super helpful.
Well, that's great. Now, so I mean, your dad as a sales advisor, clearly that's probably a good fit, and probably really helps. He's helping you to navigate and land clients. I would assume. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're running your business, it's difficult for sort of I'll say the constant lead generation
Sure.
aspect, right? And
Yep.
so, specifically with agencies, many of them will have, say, we've got, 10, 20, 30 clients at a time, and many times it's recurring work, right? Once someone finds you, you're a good fit, there's always stuff that keeps going. But there's always something where project finishes, or budgets run out from a company side, or whatever it is, and you always need to have just sort of conversations going, build your connections. And I think aside from just, I'll say, clients, just collaboration.
Okay.
For myself, I do a lot of educational workshops, working with different associations and groups across Ottawa and the Ottawa Valley. Other strategic partners. How can we help each other out? That kind of stuff too as well.
So,
Those conversations are super
well, listen, I'll
valuable.
ask you to go into a little more depth. When you say you do educational workshops, what kind of workshops and what kind of groups are you working with?
Yeah, for sure. So it's mostly it's, I'll say, business oriented groups, Chamber of Commerce,
Okay.
downtown business associations. Those are some of the core ones that I've worked with. Also work with other post-secondary schools
Okay.
to do educational workshops and programming there. And so, as a bit of background, I taught at Algonquin for 2 years in their brand management program.
Nice.
And so a lot of post-secondary schools have some sort of, I'll say, small business sector that is helping
Yep.
educate some small business owners. And so they usually have different workshops, full day aspects, maybe webinars, that kind of stuff. So doing some stuff there in that space, and also at the Impact Hub. It's a great
Okay.
co-working space downtown, and I'm a sales and marketing coach there, and they have some great webinars and workshops there too as well. So really just a variety of different things. And then in terms of what kind of topics, the last one I did was just evaluating websites. So what makes a good website great? And we actually did live web audits at the event. So
Nice.
I asked for
Nice.
some volunteers, a couple brave people said, "Hey, check on my website and give real-time feedback." So that was
Oh,
things like
that's
that
dangerous,
too.
eh?
Yeah. It was fun. I wasn't, rude or too
No, you weren't.
rude.
Yeah, not too brutal. That's
Um,
good.
but yeah, things like that I think are also valuable for people because they're like it's real-time feedback as we went
Yeah,
through
for
it.
sure, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's really exciting. That's really exciting. No, that's a good way to. I mean, it's a, to be fair, I think it's probably a unique but invaluable way to network. Get your name out there and your brand without direct advertising. It's no, it's fantastic. I really like that. It's pretty ingenious.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
something that we're trying to do more of for sure. And so, yeah, my dad's helping me to connect with the right groups of people and do that. I really did love teaching at Algonquin, but, balancing that in a business is quite difficult. And so just, making sure I allocate time to my business is needed, but I still really love the educational aspect. So things like that are
Okay,
great.
it's in your blood,
Um,
right?
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, but you're right. It's just connecting with people, talking about topics that you know about, and trying to provide some really good, valuable content that they can take away. And whether they do that on their own or whether they come and work with me, either way, it's valuable for them.
Nice. Oh, that's great. Okay, so on that topic, we talked a little bit about your past and stuff. So why don't we go back there? Let's go back to your origin story. How did Jordan Hawn get into where he is today? But let's go back as far as you want to. I mean, if you're like 5-year-old kid and you're thinking, man, marketing's awesome, whatever. If you have to go back that far, it's great. But
Yeah.
if what got you into what got you into this field of work? How about
Yeah,
that?
for sure. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I guess I'll go to my college days, or
There you go.
that would be make the most sense. So actually, the first program I ever took was a music production program, and
Okay.
so whenever I was growing up, and I still do, I still play guitar. I've been playing for 17 years. I was in a lot of bands growing up, and played hundreds of shows across Ottawa and the Ontario and Quebec.
Any kind?
Um,
Were you in a band, or are you in a band? Is that
I was, yeah, I was. So very loud, very sort of heavy metal type of
nice?
music, which is, a lot of people say they're surprised when I say that, but yeah, that was sort of the type of genre we were in.
Okay.
And we played quite a bit, and so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life, and there was a 1-year program, just learn about the music industry, record, all that aspect. So I took it,
Okay.
and there's a marketing program in there. And so once I started into there, I really started to enjoy it, and that led into more school out of Algonquin in marketing,
Okay.
and built from there. But I actually didn't get a marketing job for several years after I graduated.
That's tough, eh?
Yeah, it's tough. It's and talking to a lot of students, former students too. It's difficult, right?
Yep.
People want 1 year's experience when you're
Yeah,
just
for sure.
getting out of school, or they want you to do 20 different tasks
Yeah.
that you should know about the back of your hand. So it is tricky. And so I actually ended up going in the insurance industry. Uh, Worked for a couple of different companies, different brokers, doing some underwriting, and then
Okay.
eventually I ended up in sales. And so
Okay.
once I got into sales, that sort of helped get me back into the marketing type of. But throughout that whole time, I always did freelance work. So I always helped out,
Okay.
or I did projects on the side, make some extra money.
Nice.
When I first started that, it isn't to the level it is now, right? So
Sure.
anyone with internet can now you work around the world, but before that, in sort of early mid 2000s, that wasn't the case. And so it was just people I knew they needed help with certain things. I would do some side projects
Nice.
and just try to keep learning. And then eventually, I got a sales job with the Ottawa Senators. And so once I got that role, I think that's
Nice.
sort of where my career started to expand a bit more
Okay.
and build from that. And then from there to a marketing agency in Ottawa. And I also worked at Canopy Growth Corporation in Smith Falls as one of their marketing team here too as well. But unfortunately, they had a lot of layoffs, and then I got laid off.
Yeah, they've had a tough time for sure.
Yeah, and then I had to sort of rethink where I was going. And then an old boss of mine started off a new real estate development company, Brick River Properties. They're still operating in Ottawa.
Okay.
And yeah, I did all the brand and marketing and sales there. So that was sort of like a startup mentality. You got to do things from the ground up. I learned a lot there. Yeah, so that's sort of
Like
where
great
it took me.
experience, right? Like
Yeah,
good to
exactly.
put on
So
your
I was
resume for
trying to
sure.
trying to get enough experience here over the last, 6 or 7 years in some of these
Yeah.
roles. And then eventually, as I said, I was always doing freelance work on the side, and
Yeah.
I gotten engaged. Actually, when I got married, I started my business very shortly afterwards. So about
Okay.
a year or 2 years, I guess, I got engaged, and you quickly find out how expensive things are when dealing with that. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, well, I can do more freelancing. And then there was things like Upwork and Fiverr and all these sort of
Right.
online
Yeah.
platforms you can
Yeah.
join. And so I started diving into that, and over the course of a year, it sort of took off. And I was like, you know what, I think I can make something on this, and just decided to go into business from there. And yeah, so it's been a process, it's been a haul, but I think I've learned a lot on the way.
Wow. Nice. Nice. Wow. That's a lot of that's quite the journey, right? Definitely not a direct path to where you ended up, but seems like you certainly were on your way there the whole time. Okay, let me ask you this. So timing wise, you were kind of telling me off air. Something you wrote to me, you're talking about how COVID was kind of the catalyst for going this route. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so what happened was the Verdant Canopy growth. At that time, they were sort of peak level. I think there was 1,800 staff.
Right.
It was, the cannabis boom, and they were growing rapidly. And then COVID happened, and then they completely shifted how things were doing. And so there's multiple layoffs there. I think now they're down to about 350 staff.
Wow.
So they made some major changes, but
No
I
kidding.
wasn't a part of the first layoff. But after that happened, you sort of see the writing on the wall.
Right.
And very shortly afterwards, I was laid off, along with hundreds of other really talented people. So it was really tough because it wasn't great. I really enjoyed working there. It's with good people. And then once that happened, it's like, well, what am I going to do now? And and so many other people had lost their jobs during that time, so it's very competitive. And so since then, I was like, well, that's where, again, try to really get into more freelance work, try to do something, bring some cash in.
Okay.
And
This
then
is all during COVID, right? So this is like,
this is during COVID. This is like
wow.
right when it happened. So I think it was the March or April after it was announced that I was laid off. So it was a couple months in.
Just a couple months into COVID.
Yeah.
Wow, geez, I don't know how I would have done if I was in your boat. Like it just, yeah, that sounds like a lot on top of a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's a struggle for sure. Luckily, my wife was able to continue to work as a healthcare worker. She's an
Okay.
audiologist. But, that's she needs to go into work and do those aspects. So she was working full time. But yeah, it was tough. I think about it gave me like probably a day or two, and then after that, I just started contacting everybody I knew. I
Wow.
had just
Wow.
started
Nice.
reaching out to everybody. It's like, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Obviously, you couldn't even really go meet with people, and so it's just phone
Right.
calls, emails, and applying for jobs. So I had a lot of interviews, had a lot of applications, a lot of conversations, and then yeah, and that's where think it was about 4 or 5 months until I finally found something. So it took a little bit, but yeah, it was not fun for a lot of people, for sure.
No
But
kidding.
yeah, it was tough enough, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. That was a tough period for a lot of people, and certainly, yeah, like if you got laid off or you couldn't work, it just made it even tougher. Like all the terrible things going on with COVID, that put a lot of pressure on everyone. But the work situation on top of that. So hey, kudos to you for powering through because it wasn't easy. It was a tough time
Yeah.
in the world, and just so many things going on, and on top of that, trying to find a job and like you said, having the conversations with people, but having that uncertainty, that's got to be tricky.
Yeah,
So
yeah, just on that, a lot of businesses also didn't know where they were going. And
right,
so,
yeah,
even though it may be a good fit or they'd be interested, it's like, well, we actually don't know where our budget's going to be. We don't know the direction of our business. A lot of companies flipped and did a lot of changes too.
right.
So that was the other aspect to that, aside from it being competitive. Many businesses had no idea, can I, afford to stay open in a couple months, or am I going to be so significantly different? So yeah, there's that component too as well.
Now all the jobs you're trying to go after, all the people you talk to, was that like marketing in the marketing field?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it
Okay. You
was
tried
because
to stick
that
to that.
role, yeah, that role, canopy growth. I was part of their visitor center, so they had, if you remember, maybe people remember it from the old Hershey days.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
Hershey was there, you could go around and tour and see the chocolate, and
Okay.
they have the retail store, that aspect, and you could tour the facility. We did something similar, but with cannabis, and so it was more like a museum. You toured, you actually saw things like chocolate and the plants and everything there. And it was very educational, just focus on the educational piece there. And so I was
Nice.
part of the marketing team there as well. So I was already in it, and I wanted to continue that after a couple of years of working, specifically in different marketing roles and agencies. So yeah,
Okay.
all those roles I looked at were there, and just talking to old contacts, other colleagues, friends, family, that sort of thing, just seeing what's up there.
Nice. Nice. So and then okay, so we fast forward a little bit and you're on your own now. You're doing your own, you're doing a consulting, you've decided to take the plunge, right? And you're just look, I'm gonna do it on my own. What was that defining moment to say, all right, look, I don't need a job, or not that I don't need a job, I don't have time for this job probably. I just need to do this full time and see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a defining moment. I think it was, it was a very tough decision. Like, it wasn't easy for just to drop it.
No, it's scary, right?
And yeah, for sure. And a lot of people tell you not to do it, too, as well. Friends are like, well, why would you do that? Like, you're leaving a full-time job that you have now. That's decent pay, like the security, right? There's always
Security.
you're leaving security and comfort,
Yeah.
versus, there's a lot of risk, right? A lot of businesses are fold after a year or
Yeah.
under that, and a lot of different variables. But yeah, so I don't think there was one set moment. It was just sort of a lead up of, okay, well, I can do this. I'm gonna do it. Start to like explore those options. What does that look like? So I actually took about a year before I actually did it, and within that year, I started mapping out what my business would be, figuring out sort of all the operational sides of it, designing a website, getting up and running, who am I going to talk with. So I actually did a lot of pre-planning,
Nice.
which I think helped a lot, because
Yeah,
if I just
for
said,
sure.
oh, okay, here we go, then, it would take a
Yeah,
lot longer to get up and running.
for sure.
Um, so that's sort of it. After all that, sort of just exploring things, doing your own research, and then sort of closer in, there was just some point, and I don't remember exactly. There wasn't like one conversation or anything that sort of said I'm going to do it. It was just looking at everything, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this, and then
Nice.
and just fun with it. So yeah, it was, a lot of thinking, a lot of preparation in advance of doing it.
Okay. Now, of course, so obviously a lot of people saying, stick with the job, stick with the security. Were there any people in your corner that are saying, you know what, you should go for it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my lovely wife,
Yeah,
and
that's probably the most important person, to be
yeah,
fair.
yeah, for sure. So, she was just seeing the stuff that I was doing and some of the projects I was doing freelancing.
Yeah.
At the time, I was working with a lot of startup tech companies. Uh, there was a lot of up and coming businesses, and I was just helping them sort of get everything, the foundational pieces organized so they
Yeah.
could, get around it. And she just saw some of the stuff that I was doing, and she's like, "Oh, that's like you could explore this. You could do something." So that was a main aspect too. Yeah, my family too as well, very supportive, and yeah, my friends were too. There was just some questioning when I first brought it up,
Of course.
but then as sort of things progress, they're like, "Okay, this makes sense. I can see how you can do that."
All right.
But
I mean, because I think what happens is a lot of people give their opinion based on how they would go about it, or
right,
how they view that risk, as opposed to how you would handle that risk. You know.
yeah.
And can I ask you, is that like, was your dad integral in that process?
Yeah, for sure. I think at first, like, he just wants to make sure that, like any parent, is just want to make sure you're safe and secure and everything's good, right? And
Yeah.
so at
Yeah.
first, he was a bit hesitant.
Sure. Sure.
And so, um, but again, as I was doing this and I'm doing the work and laying out the plan for it and then showing him some of the stuff that I've been doing or have mapped out, that's when it sort of starts clicking for people, I think. If you just say that, like, hey, I'm going to start a business tomorrow, people are going to think you're crazy, right?
Right.
So once I have that sort of mapped out and like, here's my plan, here's what we're going to do, what do you think, get your feedback, that's when he's like, okay, then this makes sense and I can see how this can
Nice.
do. I
Nice.
think the other aspect too is because at the time I was teaching in Algonquin. And
Okay.
so I think that was actually also a good, I'll say, safety net in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, because it's like I know each month I'm still going to get paid. It's not a full
Right.
time job, but there is something coming in. There could be opportunities to work there full time if I ever wanted to. So I think that also helped make the leap. Just to know that there was something. If all else fails,
Worst
or
case. Right. Right.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you have a couple tough months too, right? Which happens, in the earlier days, and where you're not getting as much work as you'd hoped for, and so just having that there is just it just did help for sure. And then after a year of doing both of it, it was a lot, and I just decided to just to focus on the business after that.
Nice. Nice. Now, you had mentioned that you had some mentors along the way. What kind of mentors did you have? Were they industry people?
Yeah, there was, there's lots of people as I think back. It's, everyone that I worked at some major roles in some of these jobs that I had. Obviously, like, my dad, as I mentioned, was a big mentor from that. But there's a lot of guys and girls that I've worked with over the years that have helped.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think back. I guess, when I started as like Mike Wood from Algonquin College, she was the one that did the marketing section there, and I still talk to him today. And so that was sort
Nice.
of the first one to help get me into that. And he was super helpful in connecting me with other people and stuff, and also for jobs and those kind of things. So I think that he was always helpful there. Um, then I think back to, I guess, different roles I had that I had, but there's just a lot of different people. I don't think there was just one or two set people.
Okay.
One thing with mentors that I see is that it's constantly sort of evolving, right? Based off of what you're doing at this time, what your
Yep.
focus is, what your
Yep.
priorities are. So, like, you may have a good mentor for, a couple months or a year, and then your priorities shift or what you're trying to focus on shifts. And so you need another mentor that sort of fills that out. So I've always had different people in all the roles that I've worked in previously that have sort of helped me along the way, and still help me today. So it's sort of
Nice.
an ebb and flow, I guess, depending on situations.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. It's yeah, it's good to have people in your corner, and it's just good to have a network that you can tap into, like you said,
Mhm.
as needed, where your priorities shift, or your business is evolving, and now you need different things to help you along the way. Oh, that's great. That's great. So, now you said you've been in business for a year and a half, right? Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then just 6 months ago, you this is when you onboarded your first. member of the team, right?
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of people about when they first started hiring, and it's the same. It's almost the same conversation every time. I got an opportunity for a big project and something that I could not do myself. And then I was looking at trying to get like a variety of, freelancers or subcontractors to help. It just didn't make any sense. And so I was already working with someone at the time, and then
Okay.
she's now our full-time designer, Christina,
Nice.
and also a former student at Algonquin. So sort of goes back a couple of years.
Yeah.
Uh, but so I had some more work coming in. I needed help, so she was helping at that level. And then I told her, I was like, well, very large, contracts, going over 7 months, or 7 plus. Well, it's much longer now since then, but at
Nice.
the time it started off a 7 month contract. I was like, I need someone to help. And essentially it was a gentleman that I still work with today. He was leaving the company he was working with to start a new company. And so we did, everything from the ground up. All he did was bring me a logo. He's like, here's the logo, the colors, and the fonts. You gotta get everything else.
Nice.
And so we built everything from the ground up, all with messaging, how he's going to be positioned in the market, the website, and then we run all his LinkedIn content currently out there too as well. We've done a variety of other things for them since. So yeah, it was a really cool project and something where we're still working with them today.
Nice.
And just because that one project is like, okay, well, I need some help. And then as that happens, as you get out there, and then more projects start coming in.
That's great.
But yeah, so that's sort of how it stands. It was just, needed the help. I was
Yeah,
already working
great.
with someone and you just built from there.
And I think, but you were telling me that you were started to onboard people because you wanted to like you said, you needed help, and so it expanded your offering for the services that you had available, right? So now you
Yeah.
have, with the full team that you have, now you can offer like a full slate of services. So I tell you what, why don't you run me through what you were saying? There's a 4-step process that you take a lot of your customers through.
Yeah. So we just have sort of a 4-phase system that we use to help build a really strong marketing infrastructure. And so what I mean by that is we have to really evaluate the certain circumstance that each customer is in. And so whether it's a business just starting out, whether it's, hey, we've, been doing a few things for years, but we really are trying to, go from here to here and have a significant growth, there has to be some sort of evaluation of what the foundational pieces are. And so what we always do is go through 4 main things, but sort of the analysis phase, right? So we have to understand the business, the market, what we're trying to accomplish, and then do our research to make sure that we have that solidified. Then from there, it's strategy. And so that goes into the brand component, the web component, as well as content. So just making sure we've got a really good strategy from start to finish for that as we execute on it. And then there's obviously the creation aspect of it. So really on the design, how we connect visually, to the brand, as well as from a messaging standpoint, how do we make sure that everything is aligned and cohesive and has a really strong identity and goes into everything else that we're going to do. And then the last part is just execute, right? Making sure, not just sort of saying, here you go, but okay, let's do some training. Let's make sure to have sort of a post-month recap to make sure everything's working well, with some build momentum as you actually launch some of the stuff to the market, to make sure that we get awareness and that we're actually connecting with new people right away. So making sure we have that full plan over those 4 steps, and that's typically done in a lot of times between 120, 150 days. So we've sort of just mapped out how we do each project. We have that structure and we have that aspect here, and we make sure that regardless of industry or size of company, we still go through the same steps, but there may be adjustments on obviously the goals of that company, what they're trying to achieve,
Right.
positioning in different aspects. So there's other variables, but those 4 steps are sort of the foundation that we use.
Nice. So now, do you try to take every customer through those different phases? So every project you do, and is that tough sometimes? Like, do you have some customers that'll come to you and be like, "Hey, this is exactly what I want. This is all I need." do you ever have to sit people down and be like, listen, it's going to be a lot more effective if we actually go through the full process, or like, are
Yeah,
people
yeah,
open to
no,
that?
for sure. People always come to, and people will come to me with different things and say, hey, well, I'm really just trying to improve what I'm putting on social media right now, right? And so they usually come with one thing, but after you start getting into the conversation, it may lead to other things. So, as an example, if the stuff they're putting out there on social media isn't working, well, maybe it's because where you're directing your audience to your website is not prioritized and impactful to actually get people to book a meeting with you or sell your product. And so, to me, it's just that's the starting point. But usually, okay, what's the real
Yeah,
problem, the real obstacle they're having? And so you
yeah,
sort of have to have those conversations. And so typically what happens is like, yeah, a lot of people say, hey, I want to have these things done. But then as the conversation goes, it's like, okay, let's backtrack. I need to know about your business, and we have to do some sort of initial research and evaluation of all the current stuff that you
peel
have.
back
So
the
I can,
layers, right?
yeah, exactly. So I can do a good job, because if I don't, then I'm making assumptions
Yeah,
based off of
yeah,
past projects or anything there. And that's typically where you have problems or inconsistencies or
right.
best practices are missed, things like that. So
Fair,
it's
fair.
really it's all those initial sort of discovery conversations before you start working with someone that you understand actually what the real need is, um, based off of sort of what they're first starting, and then you go back through that. So I always go through the same process, and make sure to understand their goals. And there might be some variables, like I mentioned, right?
Sure.
You know, I do a lot of LinkedIn stuff. That's because I primarily work with a lot of professional services
Yep.
and
Yep.
nonprofit. And so, a lot of people want to be on there for one way or the other. But if you're, working, dealing with an e-commerce company, as an example, then we may have or we will have different social channels that are going to be more impactful than what that is. And so there's a shift there on some of the things, but just those four staple points that we want to make sure are consistent.
Yep.
Some of the other things are going to be more variable depending on what they've already done in the past, what their current goals are, and where they're trying to go.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that totally makes sense. I mean, look, every client's going to be different. They're gonna have different needs. So you can't, they're not all going to follow the same path. But those basic steps are really what you're doing, and you're kind of, I assume, after every step, you're sort of evaluating, deciding how you're going to tackle the next phase, and then looking at the data at some point to see what's working, what's not. Right. That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's there's testing and then adjustments that go as throughout the process too, for sure. But yeah, I think it's just good to have that staple. It's also from like a project management standpoint. We
yeah,
want to make sure everything is automated to the week, that we know, hey, each week this is getting done. Everyone knows their role in advance. It's the same thing every single time. This avoids like a lot of back and forth with clients or a lot of issues internally. And that's something we actually talked about yesterday. We had a big sort of in-person session, and we just said, okay, well, it worked last week or last month when we do really well, it didn't.
nice.
And just to make sure that, okay, how do we improve our internal processes? And so, like,
Oh, that's great.
one thing we looked at was like, okay, well, sometimes it's difficult to even find all the necessary information we want in our own project management tool, and simplify that. And actually making adjustments. So hearing feedback from staff and things like that are really important, because
Yeah,
otherwise you're just going to have the same problems on an ongoing basis, and it's going to be not just impactful from the customer side in terms of the service and the quality that they have, but
yeah.
that frustration internally from staff too as well. So yeah,
Right.
stuff like that is really, really important.
Oh, that's brilliant. Always keep evolving. Don't, you can't, sit on your laurels. You gotta keep making things better, more efficient. And there's, as you know how it goes, everything's evolving out there with all the tools and
Yeah,
information available. So you gotta stay on top of it and keep changing with the times, right? So yeah,
yeah,
no, that's
absolutely.
fantastic. I love that you guys do those monthly check-ins to make sure that things are going smooth. That's probably really smart way of going about it.
Yeah, it's been helpful to just progress, right? To move things forward, especially when, we only take on a certain number of projects at a time to try to
Fair.
make sure that we have, good quality and good service. But like as the company has grown, that means more projects. And so that means there's a lot on the go. And so with
Yep.
that, we have to be efficient with that. The flip side is like clients are always asking us about technology, and so you have to
Right.
stay on top of that kind of stuff. Like, the questions they get about AI, marketing tools, what website providers should be using. Like, you have to, have some knowledge of that
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
minimum. But for us, we're trying to stay on top of things. Even if, like AI as an example is not in a lot of ways not commercially viable, meaning we would not be putting something in there and copy and paste that from another website, right, as like website copy, or we wouldn't, even from the imagery and the text to video, that kind of stuff is not at the level in my eyes anyways that you should be
Yeah.
doing that and selling that to someone, right? So it's not there yet, but there's going to be a time where it's going to be significantly changing how we do things, specifically in my business, right? A lot of people look
Sure.
for website design and development. So I already know there are tools, although they're not perfect or not absolutely great, but you can put in a paragraph and you can do a one-page website. There are things like that already. And so to me, I already know we're going to have to shift and evolve based off of where these things are going. And so we just have
Okay.
to make sure to know what's going on with it. And you know, our value to our customers is how to do that in a strategic way that's actually going to be really impactful, not just the execution, right? Yeah, so it's much more than people just getting us to just do something. It's like, hey, we have to put some thought into this and figure out how this is actually going to be successful for what you want, not to just do it or something like that, too.
Wow. Nice. Nice. Yeah. Very interesting. I mean, okay. So there's tons of productivity tools, right? So not even AI, just there's tons of productivity tools, tons of marketing tools.
Yeah.
Do you have like all the clients that you have come in the door probably come with a whole suite of different things? Like, how do you keep up with all the different tools that these people are using?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know what? A lot of businesses end up using similar tools.
Yeah. Okay.
So like WordPress is a prime example in terms of the
Sure.
website development. Very well known. Most people know it. MailChimp on the email marketing side seems to be sort of the go-to for many people. So it's really our job to look at what they're currently doing and provide them the better recommendations, not just from like a cost perspective or a use perspective,
Yeah.
but it's also like how they're going to use it. So the amount of people that have come to me with a WordPress site that said, I don't even know how to make any changes, uh, is a lot of people.
I'll
There's a
bet.
lot
I'll
of
bet that
people.
would be me. Yeah.
Uh,
Sure. No idea.
so, like if it's someone that is like, hey, I'm an IT consultant, like I don't need a complex website. I don't need to have a whole bunch of third-party apps or different integrations. Then like,
Yeah.
why are you using this? Use something that's drag and drop, easy to execute, looks good, incorporates everything you need, something more simplistic from that side of things. Because I want to make sure people know how to use the tools that we're actually implementing for them, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
otherwise it's fairly useless for them. But it is tricky. We try to prioritize certain tools that just based off of what we've tested or what we do, we prefer over other
Okay.
ones. But with us, having a lot of knowledge in WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, Webflow, Shopify, like those are, a lot of the web
Good base.
providers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a lot even just there. And so making sure we have people that can do that. We've got a great web developer who's way more tech savvy than me that has a
Right.
lot of knowledge on those kind of stuff too as well. So it's also just getting the right people. Like I don't know everything about every single marketing tech that's there,
Okay.
but making sure we have the right people. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, are there any tools that you won't use? You're like, someone said, "Hey, I need to use this. I want to use this platform or whatever." You're like, "Look, we just don't recommend it. We can't." Does that ever come up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to think of anything specifically. Um, I think to me, it's just recommending them a tool that makes more sense based on their situation.
Okay.
That's sort of how I look at it. I wouldn't necessarily say no because I don't know the context and cool until I know the full context of how they're using it,
Yeah.
or do they have an internal expert that is really good at that? And the other side is like industry specific tools. And so,
Right. Right.
you'll
Fair.
have people that are, you know, we have a mechanic who's a European car specialist in sort of high-end, Audi, different Volkswagen, BMW, and he has a integration that is specific to car dealers. We have no,
Okay.
like, this is new to us, but we just need to make sure that that is appropriately integrated with whatever we're doing. So we need to have some knowledge of what that is.
That's a bit of a steep learning curve when you have one of those, though, right?
Yeah, as long as it's, for me, I think we just have to make sure that, listen, we're not getting into the weeds with that, but we don't want to make sure how does that use with everything else that we're potentially doing. So, like,
Okay.
that has an integrated email marketing system for their existing customers. So it's like, okay, we don't need to set up something now, but we do need to write and design and have it ready to go and put that into that system. And so, it's just understanding what's being used there. And so
Okay.
we're not editing or redoing anything and using things that people are comfortable with too as well,
Nice.
because it's not just a learning curve for us, it's a learning curve for the customers. So we're
Right.
saying, you should be using this, and then they don't know how to use it. And then they're paying for something again that they don't know how to use.
Right.
Then I go to that WordPress example where it's, why am I paying all this money for this product if you don't
Sure.
actually know how to use it? So yeah, it's tricky. It's definitely the most it can be very time consuming for sure, going through some of this stuff, and just making sure you're on the ball with it. And new stuff comes up regularly, depending on, it's always industry specific, right? Whether you're a fitness facility, they've got something unique versus what um car dealers versus real estate people. Everyone's got something unique per industry.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to make sure, how do I use this effectively with the tools I know and the stuff that we're actually doing for them.
Nice. I feel like your teaching background comes into play a little bit, where you go through all these all the different phases, right? For the customer goes through, and then at the end, you have to make sure that they're well enough trained to use all the tools that you've got them set up with, like you said, like WordPress, right? So at the end, they know how to make some at least basic changes on their website if they want to.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's maybe as a teacher, it's really come in handy, I would guess, to have that kind of background.
Yeah, it's a process, and like, to me, there's always things as you see and you're working in the industry. It's and you see that sometimes people get taken advantage of for that kind of stuff,
Right.
right? It can be a minor change and then they get charged significantly for it, or ongoing maintenance and updates, which can be a very high cost. But if you just train someone, then that would be significantly limited. And
Right.
so,
Right.
to me, it's like, I would rather empower people to know how to do this so they can make these small changes, but whether it's major projects or much larger things, where they support them where needed.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
that's really a lot that, that's the approach I take, versus some people that will do that. And it also depends on the client. Some clients like, listen, I don't want you to teach me, Sheila. I just want you to do it for me and keep doing it for me. And so, I'm very next to those people because they're busy, they've got lots going on, they run their own business. Versus you have other people like, yeah, okay, set this up, get me, again, sort of the foundation, the infrastructure, teach me how to use it. And then I just want to make sure I can do some, minor updates as I go. And then as that progresses, if there's bigger projects, you can help out with that. So there's a lot of those clients too. So it's just
Right.
providing the option, sort of, do for you, right? Just execute, or do with you, training, consulting, helping out from that side of things.
Nice. Nice. Now, do you find, I assume there's a different approach when you're talking about someone who's like maybe a one person operation versus like a larger company. Like, I assume like the one person operation, do you spend more time training those guys, I would think, so that they can do a little bit more on their own? Like the larger operations, I feel like, I don't know, maybe that's just my, I don't know, my view on things, but maybe you have different
Yeah, I
perspective.
think, yeah, no, it's a good question. I think, in a lot of ways, I feel like, if it's like a small owner operator, those people that run those businesses are way more involved in a lot of
Right.
ways,
Right.
because like, this is everything, and usually, like, it's a very big investment for someone like that is on a smaller scale, right? When you have corporate companies, or larger, more enterprise companies, you've got a whole bunch of staff, you have multiple levels of approvals and discussions. And so that can be way more time consuming, but it can also be less, I'll say, passion behind it, right? When
Right.
you have that individual person or small company They do want to know everything, and they have lots of questions because they want to learn and they want to grow and they want to take this on and run for it. So there is more time from that side, but there's more time on the company side, or just enough, or just as much, is because, well, I may actually go in there and show this to multiple people and then answer their questions. And then there may be multiple levels of approvals and back and forth. So there's more from that just on the organizational structure side that you got to deal with. So both have pros and cons, but yeah, I probably enjoy more just the one-on-one, getting
The
an
101.
individual.
That's the teacher in you, right?
But yeah, I think I enjoy it. I enjoy both, but I think I enjoy both.
Nice. I love it. That's that's you as a teacher. It must be in your blood somewhere, and in some capacity. That's awesome. Okay, Jordan, let's talk about. Can you tell me where you see things going for the next little while for Hawn Consulting?
Yeah,
Any projects you can share with us that
for sure.
upcoming?
Yeah, I think it's always a constant question that I have. And so, when I first started, I wanted to map out you sort of have like your quarterly breakdown into yearly, into 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And so I initially mapped all of that stuff out. And then
Now, how
as I
far
looked
did you go?
10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Yeah. But at that time, now I look back at it and I was like, okay, there's a lot that's changed. There's a lot that's going to change in that.
Sure.
So for us, my priority here as we go, I think we have a good foundational team. So I had to work my way up to get this team.
Yep.
So I think we're in a good spot with that, where we can execute on a lot of different projects of a lot of different scale. And so we've done that. We've got some good strategic partners that we work alongside with collaboratively too as well, whether that's, IT firms or video photography, whatever it is. There's a lot of people that we deal with. And so to me, it's about making sure that we get our core offering and just get into a really good rhythm in terms of this is almost like an automated process. Everyone knows exactly what to be doing every step of the way. We really refine that and really improve, I'll say, the customer experience aspect of it. Where are there issues where there's maybe a lot of back and forth, there's, any frustration from the customer. Obviously attention to detail is a massive component of everything we do. How do we just keep improving that to be like really, really refined? So to me, it's sort of, we've gone through, and now we really need to make sure that we're improving our crafts, I guess, on an ongoing basis, right? So my goal is to make sure that's really set up. One project that I can talk about that's not client related, but it's internally, and so we're sort of doing a revamp of our company brand components, as well as our website and some of the new offerings that we're going to have later this year.
Nice.
So I did, like, my sister's a great graphic designer. She did all the initial stuff, all the logos and everything. We're not going to stray too far, but we're going to expand on that. And then I built that website several years ago now. And so I know we can do a great job and improve on that. We have a ton of work examples that we haven't shown either too as well. So there's a lot of things that we're going to do there. And then also, aside from sort of that 4-phase foundational offer that I mentioned, and a lot of the discussion we've had is about education. I wanted to dive more into the educational space and have that more of a unique offering too as well. And so just diving into that and building that out and getting that ready to launch.
Nice.
And a couple other new sort of content avenues, I think, is going to be exciting for us, and we put a lot of work into it. But with anything, those things can fall to the side when you're just so focused on the client projects. But that's one thing internally. And so this year, I really want to hone that in, get that launched. Really have, we have a strong first offer of services that our clients have really enjoyed. And now we're getting, demand for a variety of other things. And so it's trying to figure out also, okay, I don't want to do everything for everyone.
Right.
And so you want to sort of hone that in, who do I want to work with? What are the key things we want to do? And how to get more specific into that. So that first year was sort of testing. And now I think the last couple of months is more refinement, improvement, to really focus on the fine operational stuff, all the systems that we use, all the checklists, SOPs, all of that stuff. So they're really in the weeds there over the last little while.
Is that a time thing?
Do you mean does it take a lot of time?
Yeah, like, or is it being able to allocate enough time to focus on those things?
Yeah, like those are really important pivotal pieces that I
Sure.
focus on an ongoing basis because if you don't have a good system for customers, then things get delayed, people are waiting for things, or their feedback falls through the cracks, and then you may miss something, and then they have to go back to you again. And so all of this, I think, stems from making a really good customer experience. And we're doing some interesting things to just make that improve that process for all of our customers, and also just getting feedback from the current customers that we have. What do you want? What would be an improved aspect? So I'm not shy to ask, even if it's a bit, constructive criticism, because I want to improve too as well. So those are
Oh,
some
that's
of the
great.
things internally we're doing, and then some projects um, that we've been working really hard on. We were working with Coquina convenience store
Yeah. Great.
chain. So that's been a big project. They're revamping a lot of stores. They're doing some great work there. So we're working with their team to get that rolled out and help on the, I'll say, brand, website, and content side of things.
Nice.
Um, we're doing a lot of stuff with some nonprofits, which has been really interesting and fun too as well. Something more community focused too. And yeah, so there's been a variety of different things there, and we've got lots lined up, which is great.
That's awesome.
So, just having that, again, if you go back to security and why you wouldn't want to leave a job, you want to have a couple months laid out, you want to
Right.
know the next sales, or you want to know how to keep working with certain customers that you want to continue with. So, mapping all that stuff out is a lot of time, and but at the end, it's really helpful to make sure your business continues to grow and there's progression with all of that. So, yeah, we've got those
That's fantastic.
aspects there, and go from there.
Wow, great. Great. So now you had a 10-year plan laid out. I assume we're not quite like, how far off the that path are you? I assume things have changed.
Yeah, I'd have to look back at it. I think for me, you know, part of that was, okay, well, I need to shift, make sure my priority is on this business instead of teaching. So that was one aspect.
Yep.
The other aspect was grow the team. I started off by myself. Now we've got about 7 people.
So you always thought you'd
Uh,
have a team? Is that what's fair to say?
yeah, I think at some capacity, just talking to other people, even if it's a small team, you need to delegate some things. And
Yeah.
so, um,
Because you
people
can't be
say,
great at everything, right? I mean, you got to have some
yeah,
people that round
100%,
out
or you
your
just don't have
services.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you just don't have the time. That's a lot of
You're right.
aspects too, right?
Yeah.
So if as I talk to, well, one thing I didn't mention this, but one thing when I first started out, I just called a whole bunch of people that run businesses that I felt were doing well in a similar space. And so I just talked to some owners and talked through some people, just ask some questions and be like, what are some things that you've done to help you get your business? What do you do? Just get feedback from people, from other business owners.
Nice.
And so that really helped. But as I was doing that, it became really evident that you need to have some sort of team with you.
Okay.
It's very hard to grow as just an individual. I'll just say even content as an
Sure.
example.
Sure.
Creating your own content and putting that out on a regular basis on your own is very,
Challenging.
very
Right?
time consuming and very challenging. So even things like that, right? Or doing all the finances and then the invoicing and keeping track
Oh,
of
yeah.
that. Or, there's a lot of things there that you've got to do behind the scenes. And it just
Yeah.
it became pretty quickly evident that I was like, okay, well, I'm not just going to do this on my own. So it's how to map out what that team is and what makes the most sense.
Nice. And all the business owners, all the guys that you knew, were they open to talking to you and letting you in on all the trade secrets?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was all trade secrets. One man joked, he's like, well, what if I just give you all the bad advice so you're not a competitor
Right.
down
Right.
the road?
Is that a danger? I don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like it's not like I went out and did everything that was the feedback I got. Right?
Right.
It's just a research thing. It's just let's get a whole bunch of information. Let's just look at that and which one actually makes sense to potentially pursue or dive deeper. I had people that said, hey, you need to go get an office, you need to hire a whole bunch of staff, you need to go to every networking event. And then I looked at it, I was like, well, do I really need to pay $5,000 or $6,000 a month in commercial leasing, have
That's
a 5 or
big.
10 year
Yeah.
agreement? and then I need to have a whole bunch of staff that need to come into the office. I think there's just new ways of doing business, and I
Sure.
wanted to make sure it was
Yeah.
something that was, a lot of people really enjoy working remote. We still meet in person all the time. We still have a remote office downtown Ottawa to meet with clients, so we still have that option. Things like that. It's just like, well, that is a lot of companies are very successful doing that. But then there's also a lot of companies that are struggling now to just get people back in the office or to
Yeah,
retain
definitely.
talent.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's just things like that where it's like, well, I heard from a lot of people and I just figured, certain aspects I thought worked well versus others.
Nice. Well, that's great. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate all your feedback. Jordan, I'm going to cut it off here. I think I've gotten pretty much everything I can out of you without getting into some crazy stuff. So I'm going to cut it off here, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. And maybe we'll have to touch base again soon and see what new projects you've got going on.
For sure. Thanks a lot, Nick. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for doing this, and be great to connect down the road.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks, Jordan. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Take care.
All right.